everyone, welcome to Tesla Shorts Time Daily, episode 493. Patrick here in Vancouver. It's May 30th, 2026. Here's what's happening with Tesla today. We'll start inside Giga Texas, where the purpose-built Cybercab has been filmed moving through the active production floor without any remote supervision or safety driver. The vehicle threaded its way past workers and live equipment in real time, marking the first public look at how the robo-taxi handles a controlled but busy manufacturing environment. That demonstration matters because it shows the hardware and software can already manage dynamic obstacles and changing layouts inside a single facility. At the same time, it leaves open the larger question of how those same capabilities will hold up once the vehicle leaves the factory gates and meets uncontrolled traffic, weather, and construction zones on public roads. That controlled environment test gives a useful contrast with what's happening out on actual highways. A team just finished a 3,760-mile run from Vancouver to Halifax using only the current version of FSD supervised. The route crossed multiple provinces and every kind of road surface and traffic pattern you'd expect across the country. Yet the driver recorded 0 interventions for the entire distance. The result sets a new documented benchmark for how far the present supervised stack can carry a vehicle on a single continuous trip. What stands out is that the same software will now be run again and again on comparable long routes under shifting conditions, so the data from this first coast-to-coast drive becomes a baseline rather than a one-off achievement. While that long-distance supervised test plays out on public roads, Tesla has also been moving fresh vehicles into the Canadian market from an existing production line. Chinese-built Model 3 premium RWD units reached Canadian ports several days ahead of the scheduled delivery window. Because the vehicles arrived already in right-hand drive configuration and ready for final inspection, the early arrival gives service teams extra calendar time to complete checks before customers take delivery. The practical effect is that Tesla can bring these refreshed Model 3s into competition on price and range sooner than if the same volume had to be built at a newer North American site still climbing the ramp curve. That choice of sourcing from an established high-volume plant also surfaces when you look at how Tesla is handling autonomy certification in Texas. Under state rules, manufacturers can self-approve autonomous systems for vehicles already in robotaxi testing, and Model Y units previously used in that program now carry the Level 4 designation. The self-certification route shortens the usual federal review timeline, which means other states are watching to see how Texas enforcement actually plays out in practice. It's a regulatory step that directly affects how quickly those same Model Ys could move from supervised operation to unsupervised commercial service inside the state. Even as certification moves forward in one jurisdiction, routine manufacturing details can still trigger formal recalls. Tesla recently called back nearly 15,000 Model Y vehicles because an automated applicator had skipped the required certification labels on some units. The issue was caught by internal quality checks before any vehicles reached customers, and owners are being offered free inspections and label corrections at service centers. The episode underscores how even a single skipped step in a high-volume process can still require regulatory follow-through and service center time. At the same time, Tesla is addressing those quality details at scale. Work continues on the dedicated charging network needed for the Semi. New high-power sites are advancing along major Texas freight corridors, positioned to serve early fleet operators ahead of wider commercial rollout. The next visible milestones are the completion dates for the first corridor segments, which will determine how soon operators can plan regular routes that rely on those chargers rather than public infrastructure. Those commercial charging locations sit alongside improvements aimed at consumer drivers. Live stall availability is now visible to anyone heading toward a supercharger site, which helps with planning during peak travel periods. Some Ford locations remain restricted despite the NACS agreement, yet the overall chain still lets Tesla owners see real-time occupancy before they arrive. That small visibility upgrade matters most on long weekends or holiday travel days, when drivers need to decide whether to stop at a particular site or push to the next one. All of this infrastructure and sourcing activity feeds into a larger question about where Tesla actually builds vehicles for different markets. The quick arrival of the Shanghai Model 3s in Canada shows that established production lines running at scale can move finished vehicles to an adjacent market in days rather than the weeks sometimes required for cross-border shipments between North American plants still building volume. That speed preserves capital that would otherwise go into new local capacity, even when policy pressure favors building every market from scratch inside its own borders. One note of caution comes from people who have worked directly on FSD training. Current and former employees told Futurism they would not rely on the system in critical situations, and those comments sit alongside Tesla's public statements about safety performance. The company has not responded directly to the specific statements, so regulators reviewing any future unsupervised approval will likely want to understand how those internal assessments line up with the marketed capabilities. Before we wrap, it's worth watching what the next software updates deliver on the same long-distance corridors that just set the coast-to-coast benchmark. Repeated runs under changing conditions will show whether the zero intervention result holds or whether new edge cases appear once the route is no longer novel. TSLA closed at $435.79, down $6.31, or 1.4%. If you found this useful, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps new listeners find the show. You can also find us on X at Tesla Shorts Time. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.